Oh my god. That's a lot of books, nearly 50 books. But it's a good thing. They need to go, they need to go. Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. Bit of a different video today, as you can see. There's books coming out of my years. My bookshelves haven't really been sorted through in over a year, so I thought now was the time to do a little bit of spring cleaning and do a massive book unhaul. I do a lot of book hauls, but I've never really done a book unhaul. I really like watching them on YouTube, so I thought I may as well do one, considering I've got nearly 50 books here that I'm getting rid of. All gonna go to a good home. I think a lot of them I'm going to give to the charity shop or to friends. I might pop them either on my Instagram or my Twitter for you to have a look at. If you are interested in any of these books, let me know and I can always keep one aside for you. So without further ado, let's get into it. I feel like if I leave... it's carnage! So the first book that I'm getting rid of is Hearts in Atlantis by Stephen King, and you probably would have seen that this was featured in my books that I bought in March, but the one that I had in March was the paperback and this is the hardback version. I ordered this thinking that this was the paperback, but obviously it's not. Another Stephen King book that I'm getting rid of is Black House, and if you've seen any of my videos on Instagram, you'll know that this is infamously difficult to get in the rainbow harder copy, because the rainbow cover, which is white and red, and then it's got a red spine, is the same ISBN as this one. So I'm getting rid of this one just because I've already got a copy of this one that's wrong, and I don't need two of the exact same books sitting on my shelf. The next few, I think I'll fly through these ones quickly just because they are ones from university and school that I don't really know why I was keeping hold of, but I was. We've got a few thesauruses. I don't quite know why I've accumulated so many. Why have I collected these over the years? I don't know. And the first one is Stephen Fry, and it's The Ode Less Travelled, and it's about poetry and how to write as a poet. I flicked through it at the time and I always thought that I'd come back to this, but I never picked it up when I was writing creatively in uni, and to be honest I don't think I'm going to now. If you study in the UK, you've probably seen these, you've probably owned these, you've probably had them in school before. So I've got one for Dracula, one for Carol Ann Duffy, and then one for Wuthering Heights. The next ones that I'll go into are just some other random ones. So we've got three books that my boyfriend studied at uni: Forum Boy, Earthquakes in London, and The Events. The other one is The Theory Driving Test, and I've got it on my phone. I don't really need this one, and this is slightly outdated now. I'm sure it'll be useful for somebody anyway. The next one is Be More Yoda, and it is super cute. It has a lot of quotes and things. Do or do not, there is no try. It is super fun, but I've read it before and I don't think I'm going to read it again. This one I'm getting rid of is a chunky boy. 1001 movies you must see before you die. And you can see I've sort of marked some of the movies that I've watched. They're all the classics, but I feel like if I do want to sort of watch the 100 best films, I can always go on IMDb and go through that list. The next ones are a random assortment of books, and the first one I was so gutted about because I really thought I was going to enjoy it, but I just didn't. I know a lot of people like to have in their library all of the books that they've ever read, but for me personally, I don't see the point in keeping books that I didn't enjoy unless they were part of a series and I'm carrying on with the series, or if they're by my favourite author and I'm collecting them. I just feel like if you pass them on to somebody else, they'll enjoy them a lot more. It is Grizz Grimley's Frankenstein, and it's a graphic novel. It's a retelling of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. I loved Frankenstein. I thought it was so interesting, especially a female writer back in the day. I won't lie, it did kind of attract me to the cover just because that looks like he could be part of the Black Parade, and if you know me, you know that I love My Chemical Romance. The illustrations were really good, but it just didn't grip me in the way that I thought that it would. I think this was definitely a case of overhyping it in my head and it didn't live up to the expectations. The next one is Susan Hill's The Woman in Black. I didn't like this book. I thought that I was going to like this book because I enjoyed the film. I think it's a really interesting concept and it doesn't happen very often, but I think that the film and the play were a lot better than the book itself. This book has been sitting on my shelves pretty much since it was released, and it's Slade House by David Mitchell. I think it is middle grade rather than like middle grade / YA, and it's not a very long book, but I ended up DNFing it. I kept it since because I thought, you know what, I'm gonna revisit it. I hate DNFing books. Always in the back of my mind, like, oh, will I like that book? I feel like I need to go back because I need to know the ending. I need to just start googling the ending rather than sitting through the book. I just found it a bit weird. I wasn't really enjoying it, and I thought, you know what, I'm never gonna pick this back up, so I'm gonna get rid of it because then it's not staring at me and I'm not feeling bad about the fact that I've never read it. Now this book I've never read, and to be honest I'm a bit annoyed at myself for picking it up, and it is Eleanor and Park by Rainbow Rowell. This is one that I picked up. If you've ever heard of Yalc before, it's just a YA Lit Festival, and last year they had a sort of book exchange and you could take books. If you put them on a bookcase then you could receive books back, and I noticed this was there. And I've heard of Rainbow Rowell before. I've read Fangirl, but I wasn't really a fan. But I saw this book and I thought, oh, maybe I should try another book by her. I didn't realise at the time that this book is quite racist, and that's just not something that I'm about. I don't really have any urge to read it at all. I just picked it up. There wasn't many books there at the time and I was like, oh, I recognise the name of that one, picked it up, not really thinking, and then book Twitter sort of explained how bad this book is and I was like, oh, I don't want to read that. So yeah, getting rid of that one. Good riddance. The next one I haven't finished reading yet, and it is Vox, and it's by Christina Dalcher. I'm really struggling with this book. Women can only speak, I think it's 100 words. Yes, 100 words a day. And the whole concept of the book is really interesting, but it just didn't grip me. I've listened to about 75% of it when I had a Scribd subscription, but I never ended up finishing it, and I really want to be honest. I want to find out how it ends. How annoying is this? Look at that. I hate it when they put the stickers on books. I give it 3 stars overall, and I definitely would recommend reading it, especially if you are a fan of Maggie O'Farrell. Next one is Our Story by Ron and Reggie Cray, and I think is sort of like co-written by Fred Diniage. To be honest, yeah, I only really like Legend because Tom Hardy was in it, if we're gonna deeper, and I don't think I'm ever going to read this. So there's Jimmy Jim in Flanders Fields, and that's World War One. And then When the Pigeons Come Home to Roost. I was going to read them around the time where I was doing my dissertation on the concentration camps. I've had a flick through them and they were interesting, but it's not something that I'm necessarily going to reach for. The next few I'm going to talk about are a mixture of classics and a mixture of university books. Again, I don't really know why I've kept hold of these, to be honest. So the first one is An Introduction to Children's Literature, and I mean, it is what it is. The next one is King of Shadows. People are gonna hate me for this, but I used to highlight my uni books an awful lot. This is about a boy who goes back in time. He's studying Shakespeare in school and he goes back in time and it's like the plague, and he sees Shakespeare, and it's really interesting. I really enjoyed it. These next ones are classics. I've been sort of debating whether or not I should get rid of these for a while. So the first one is Ernest Jugner's Storm of Steel. This is one that I was reading for my uni course. I think all three of these were part of the same uni course, and I think I read the first couple of chapters and then decided that I wasn't going to write my essay on this, so I never ended up finishing it. And it is based in World War One. So really I should be interested in it, but to be honest I don't think I'm ever gonna read it, but now I'm like, oh, maybe I will read it, so I might keep hold of this one, I don't know. No, I'm not gonna read it. The next one is James Joyce, A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. And James Joyce is a Irish author, and his writing is very interesting. The next one is J.G. Ballard's Crash. I think this is a bit of a strange book. I don't really know, but I'm getting into that one anyway. So I did a joint honours English literature and history. So the first one is Suetonius, Lives of the Caesars, and again this is one that I flicked through but I don't think I really read, to be honest. And this one I did read a little bit more, and that's Herodotus, the Histories. Next one, oh, this is a chunky boy. So it is Romanticism, and it's an anthology, and it's the 4th edition, and you could actually knock somebody out with this. And this is basically all the poems from the Romantic era. I did kid myself thinking, I'm gonna get through all of this, I'm gonna get through all the Romantic poetries. I love Wordsworth, I love Coleridge, but let's be honest, I'm not going to. The last two of like the uni books, there's an introduction to literature, criticism and theory, that could be helpful, and then The Two Cities, and this is about medieval Europe, and again this was one that we were recommended to buy. Don't really think I used it very much. That's the thing with uni, you think you need to buy all the books and you really don't. Just borrow them from the library. So much easier, it'll save you a lot of money. The next lot of books are all ones that I got from the publisher. I'll go through the finished copies first and I'll finish with the ARCs. Just because I'm getting rid of them doesn't mean that I didn't enjoy them. They're just ones that I don't think I'm going to read again, and I feel like other people would really appreciate reading. This one is The Stasi Game, and this is by David Young, and I was part of the blog tour for this back in November, and this is sort of a post World War II, it's set in Russia, and it's about like MI5 and then the Stasi, which is like the secret sort of service in Russia. And this is actually part of a series, but you can read it as a standalone, and I read it as a standalone and I did enjoy it. I give it 3 stars overall. It wasn't my favourite book in the world, but I feel like somebody else will really appreciate it. The next book is by Jacqueline Purtle, and it's 365 Days of Happiness. It gives you a page to read a day. It's a really lovely book and I got a lot out of it. I feel like somebody else will really appreciate this book, especially if you need a bit of like uplifting. Next one is by Kate Lever, and it's The Friendship Cure, and this is a really interesting book. It delves into women and women's friendships. I feel like somebody who's really into non-fiction would enjoy this. So this one I received from the Swansea Bloggers Collective, and it is from #press, and this is the originals, and it's a collection of short stories written by children, and this is such a lovely heartwarming book. I think that this would be such a lovely book to pop into a charity shop because it's written by children as well. It'd be really exciting, like a child coming across this and seeing that it's written by children and sort of encouraging them to follow their dreams of writing and inspiring them really. And this one I received ages ago by Walker Books, and it is The Wonder of Us by Kim Culbertson, and this is a book about like 2 best friends and they sort of going in separate directions. I think the one friend moves schools and they go on this big trip around Europe. It's a dual narrative and it was really interesting overall, but again it's not one that I'm going to pick up again, and I feel like somebody else is really going to appreciate. And the last book out of the finished copies is Bad Habits by Flynn Meaney, and if you follow me on Bookstagram or my blog you'll know that I recently reviewed this book and I give it 3 stars. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was such an interesting concept, and it is full of feminism, it's full of really important topics, And as much as I enjoyed it, I feel like somebody else, especially if they're a teenager, would really appreciate reading this book. We're nearly coming to the end. It's been a long video. If you're still watching, kudos to you. So the last ones are arcs that I received. First one is Red Hood by Alana K. Arnold, and this is a Little Red Riding Hood retelling. It was interesting. Basically, the story goes that boys are turned into wolves, and it's sort of based on their sort of like sexual desires and things. It did talk about periods in a lot of detail, which is fine because I think there should be period representation in books. But there's only so many times that you can hear the word blood mentioned and periods and stuff. The next book is This Is Not a Ghost Story by Andrea Portes. Murder House, the first season of American Horror Story. It was very similar vibes to that, and I was really interested in it, and it was sort of very fantastical, very creepy. Everything wasn't as it seems. It was just bizarre, I think that's the right word to describe it. So I really loved it up until the ending, and the ending just felt a bit flat for me. It was interesting, but it felt a bit like a cop-out to me, and that's no like disrespect to the author or anything like that, because it was really clever, but I was expecting something different to happen, and then I was just a little bit disappointed by the ending. Next one is The Last Spell Breather by Julie Pike, and this is a Welsh author, and this is a middle grade book, and it's fantasy, and it's all about like spells and magic, and it tried to do a lot of things in not many pages, so a lot of the plot felt a bit rushed. It felt like quite confusing, and I thought, well, if I'm confused as an adult reading this, then a child probably is going to be confused. I feel like this definitely could have been split up and made into a series, and then the plot would have been dragged out a lot slower, and that would have been a lot better to sort of take in the information. It was an interesting concept, I just didn't enjoy where the plot went and how it was executed so much. The next one is Giant Days by Non-Pratt, and this one I was given to by a friend. I don't think she read it, so she passed it on to me, but in all honesty, it doesn't sound like a book that I feel like I'm gonna enjoy. I don't know why this is still on my shelves, to be honest. It is Always Forever Maybe by Annika Morose Reese. This was from June 2018, so that's how long it's been on my bookshelves for. It delves a lot into toxic relationships, but I had a lot of issues with this book. I felt like it didn't deal with things in the correct way when it came to like mental health, that sort of thing, and the way that it portrayed the toxic relationship I don't think was helpful for teenagers, just personal opinion, and I wasn't so fussed on the ending as well. So the last one, I say get rid of, but technically it wasn't mine, so it is Infinity Sun by Adam Silvera. Now this actually belonged to my friend Library of Keris on BookTube. And let me see if I can find her notes. I'm going to read you out one of her notes, okay? So the line says, someone says in an English accent, which is no doubt my favourite accent, and then she's just wrote ew. And I'll be honest, I enjoyed reading Keris's notes about this book more than I actually enjoyed the book itself, which just speaks volumes, doesn't it? I was really looking forward to reading this book. I read Adam Silvera's They Both Die at the End and loved it. So when he came out and said that he was writing a fantasy book, I was like, oh, I'm super interested in that. But to be honest, didn't really understand what was going on. I felt like the plot was moving too quickly. There was a lot of characters that I didn't care about. I feel like this is going to be one that I'm going to pass on. I know I said to Keris, does she want it back? And she said no. So I might pass it on, but at the same time, I know it's like a proof from like an author that I did love their book, but then I don't love this one, so I'm like, do I keep it, don't I keep it? So that was my massive spring book unhaul. 48 books in total, which I'm quite proud of myself to be honest. A lot of these are ones that have been sitting on my shelf for ages that I just needed to get rid of, that I've never actually got round to getting rid of. Let me know if I am getting rid of any of your favourites. If I am, it's nothing personal, they're just ones that are not necessarily for me, but I'd like to pass them on so that somebody else will really enjoy them. Thank you very much for watching. Bye!